starting in my studio this week because I want to show you hints on painting certain subjects, and I've got much more control in the studio. Right, let's take our first one, subject. Let's take water. And water's one of those things, it seems to terrify people, how to paint water. Well, in fact, painting water, I suppose one can analyse it or make it brief by saying it's really what you don't put in that makes water. I'll show you what I mean. Now, here we've got a post. Let's just assume it's a post. And we'll also assume that the paper is water. So, if we've got a post and we've got water, we've got a reflection. And this is the whole point. It's the reflection that makes water. But we don't want to concentrate and elaborate the reflection too much. Let's say the water's still, so all we've got is something which is exactly the same as above. In other words, the reflection is exactly the same as the post. Now let's assume we have another post painted exactly the same way, but this time we'll have movement on the water. Now when or before you actually paint the water or the reflection in the water, just give yourself a dummy run and just get used to the feel. Now I've got used to the feel, bags of water, remember, in your paintbrush, and we just flick that along there. Now, what has happened, we've let the brush fall down in a sort of water movement. It sort of almost ripples, just sort of, you can feel the sort of water rippling or moving more than rippling as you paint it. And the broken stroke helps to give this feeling of water and a reflection of the post. Now, that's very simple, and we're still talking simple water. But the reflection, remember, is the most important thing. Another thing about reflection, remember that if, let's take our post again, but a thinner post this time, and let's put a bank on there, shall we? Just let's suggest that's a bank. That's the edge of the water. Now, reflections go the opposite way to what they are on the land. For instance, in other words, not reflections on the land, but from the object on the land. Now, if that is our post, then our reflection must go that way, the opposite way. If the post was leaning the other way, then obviously the reflection would go the other way. So here we go, put in our reflection. Remember, bags of water, and the reflection, tell yourself, talk your way through it. The real post is that way, so the reflection must be that way. A dummy run, and then just the sort of movement, letting the hand move and flow around. But notice the difference. The angle is that way. If we had, let's just do a very small one now, one that way, then we would have our reflection going that way. Always remember that. Reflections are the opposite angle. Now that shows how simple we can make water look. If, of course, the water was blue, it would look even more like water. And if there's reflections from other things around, then it would look more like water still. But remember, with water, especially in watercolour, it's amazing how you can get away with leaving white paper to make it appear like water, as long as you have reflections. Let's take reflections where everything is moving. Now, we've got sky, and this is the sky that I'm painting in now. Now, notice it's bags of water and it's really wet and it's running down. Now, into this sky, I'm going to paint a yacht. Now, I'm coming down the sails on either side. It's all very wet, so I haven't got any problem about it drying. We've got the area between the sails showing through. I'll tell you what, we'll just add a little bit of crimson in that as we get nearer the horizon. I hope you've been practicing the washers, because it's amazing how you need washers while you're working. Look at this. This is really lovely, the way that's sort of running down. Now, then let's come back into the sea. A line under there. You can see what's happening, we're doing it very, very simply. And yet we're getting... Now, here we go. This is where you've got to concentrate and work on the reflection. We come in there, and we come round and down. Little flick there. Now, when we get nearer, I'm going to do... Remember the dry brush strokes? I'm getting more dry brush in here, because that just gives us the feeling of water. Do you know, I love painting trees. A lot of people are worried about trees, but again, let's have a look at them simply, or painted simply. So here we go. Don't worry about, again, the colour that I've got. All I'm doing is a colour that can be seen well. And the object is to, first of all, to paint the tree in its main form. In other words, I'm not trying the little branches yet. I'm just getting the tree. This is a tree, incidentally, out of leaf. Let's just sort of put a bit of something on the bottom so we can see it. Now, this is where I use a smaller brush. And this is the rigger. And notice what I'm doing. The branches I'm painting in are all being painted in the direction that they grow, or, as I always say, grow or go. And this is important because it does mean, you see, the natural brush stroke is going from left to right, if you're a right-handed person. And the natural thing that a brush does is to go thick to start with, because it's got the paint on it, the new paint, as it were, or the water, and then it goes thinner at the end, especially as you lift in your brush off the work. So if you remember that, when you're painting something like a tree, then it does mean that the branches start by being thick, and then they're going thinner as they grow outwards. And of course, you can, I'll tell you what I must do. I must just put that bit of fence. Now, that's not to make it pretty. What it does, it gives you scale to that tree, or otherwise we wouldn't know what size that tree was. So we just put the fence in. It's always a broken fence, just another bit that goes up to there, and we'll leave that one. When that dries, I'm going to come back and I'll put dry brush work on it to show the, if you like, the feathery branches, the thin branches at the end. So we'll let that dry, but while we're waiting for that to dry, I want to do a tree in summer. So here we go. I've mixed a little greener colour this time, not very much, but it's slightly greener than the other colour. And here we go. Again, remember this is in summer, but I'm still going to work it exactly the same way that I've just done the one without leaves. I'm still putting branches on. Put a little bit of something on the bottom. Now, that's got the main shape of the tree. Now, while that's there, it looks awful, doesn't it? It looks almost dead. But while that's there, with a lighter coloured green, I say while it's there, while it's wet, while the water's there, while the paint is wet, I'm going to, remember the brush strokes I showed you, where it's a free brush stroke, and you're just going from side to side. Now, notice it's running in with the trunk, and this is great, because after all, the leaves do go over the trunk. So here we go. Bit more around there, leave the trunk there, and it's this lovely sort of feeling of, oh, I know what I must do. I must just, while it's wet, just put some more branches up with this brush. This is my number 6 I'm using at the moment, by the way, number 6 sable. We'll just have one coming under there, one there, and this is where we'll just put some more sort of suggestion of grass on the ground to at least make it appear as though it's on ground and not floating in the air. Now, again, when that's dry, then I could carry on adding more tone to it, in other words, darker areas. Remember, light against dark. But what I'm doing at the moment with this tree, I'm painting trees that are in the sort of middle distance, not trees that are close up, because that's totally different. We'd be looking at a lot more detail. So with the dry brush, you can see it hitting and missing. I'm sure you'll remember that a dry brush simply means that the brush is dry or it's damp with paint rather than running in water. And again, I'm following in the direction that the branches are growing or going. Now, when I get round the trunk, it's pretty obvious that a tree is three-dimensional, of course, and so we've got branches going all the way around in all different directions. So some of them do cover the trunk, and therefore I'm going, and of course coming away from the trunk at the back like that. So I'm adding a few more there. And just a weeny bit. What I keep doing, incidentally, I keep just letting the brush, dry the brush out on a bit of blotting paper. It's always handy to have around. I don't use it very much at all in my watercolour painting, but it's always handy. And if you want to dry the brush quickly, you can just rub it on the blotting paper. And that's what I'm doing in here. Right, I think that's all we need on the tree. Bearing in mind that this is one way of painting trees and one method. It doesn't mean that when you go out, you've got to paint all trees like this. You're copying from nature when you're outside. Use this as your idea and a way to help you and get over the nerves of painting a tree because you've actually painted them indoors. Not exactly a tree, is it? It isn't pretty either. But don't worry when you find somewhere like this, because if you look around, explore, you're bound to find something that inspires you, and you can paint it. Come on, let's have a look. Isn't that a gorgeous boat lane over there here at Exeter Quay? Oh, I'd love to paint that. But they said, no, you've painted enough boats so far, so we've got to carry on looking for trees. No, they're no good. I mean, there's plenty of trees there, but the trouble is with trees like that, there's no definition. And of course, you can't paint them without definition. But I'll tell you what, that's the tree I'm going to paint over there. I like that one. Right, I've done the drawing for the picture. This is the main thing, of course, this nice big tree up here, poplar tree, because it makes a nice composition coming down and then along with the water, and of course the reflection. The trouble is, the reflections aren't there at the moment because we've got the wind come up, it's got rather chilly, and that's one of the reasons I put my jacket on, because whatever happens, you must always be comfortable and warm. So here we go, let's start with the sky. Now, there's plenty of cloud up there now. I don't want it too complicated, but that's the sky. But I must put some of this cloud in that we've got. And the cloud runs then into lovely sort of yellow ochre colour. It really is a nice, warm, light colour. So we'll get that going. Notice I'm painting into the tree, so that I get some lighter areas left, because that's the white. Now, there's a wall over here that has got to go in. It's a grey wall. It's darker than this, but I'm putting it in. Somebody walked past then, but they've gone now, and I put them in when I was doing the drawing. Just to give me scale. It's nice to have scale, so that we can see how big things are. That's the wall. Then we've got the roof. Let's see whether we can get the roof in here while the sky is still wet. So, yes, that's about it. It's a very light grey, this sky, this roof. You're fine. And in fact, I can see it creeping out there. Finishes into that tree, not too low, or otherwise it's lower than that point there. So obviously it's got to finish level with that. The sun isn't being helpful. It's gone in, and of course we haven't got shadows. But I was looking while I was drawing, while the sun was still out, just to check. And this is what you must always do. If you're in a scene where the mood is changing, or the sun is going in or going out, then you've got to check where the shadows are when the sun is out, in case you come to paint them and of course the sun has gone in at that time. Very important. I'm going to start with the trees. And remember the brush strokes I've shown you with trees. Keep them very free and very loose. So I'm not painting the trees as portraits of trees and close up with every leaf. I'm going to do it as a picture, and I'm just suggesting them. Remember, it's all a case of suggestion and an impression of what we're painting. So here we go. I'm starting at the left because, as I said before when working, if you're starting to paint at the left, it's still dry, or you're not painting over wet areas as you move to the right of the picture. Just have a little bit of dark. It's a redder, that, I think, that tree, a bit warmer. Okay. Don't forget, don't do this dry, use bags of water all the time you're working. Up to the top of that wall, like that. Then we've got a lighter one here next to it. Just a bit yellower. We'll be putting more tones on this, of course, as we go along when it dries. I'll put them in there. We've got, in fact, at the end, that goes round there more. It looks like a lamppost or something there. I'm going to leave that. There's two of them, actually. I shall leave them there so we can paint them. Then we get a darker one over here, and it's further away, so it's just going, I've just cooled the colour off a little bit. And while I'm doing these, you must remember, while I'm working these, I don't want areas to dry, so that I want them to merge, and that means that I've got to work reasonably quick. Now, on the right-hand side, I'm going to warm it up a bit, because although the sun isn't there, unfortunately, it does get lighter on that side. There's a nice one that sort of comes up there all by itself, comes around here, and then it gets dark again as it comes down behind this lighter tree. Oh, that gives a nice edge. Isn't that gorgeous, that edge there? That's running into there, I'm not worried about that, but that gives a nice edge. Let's bring it down far enough to that. That's lovely, and in fact it just goes even a weeny bit lower still, down to there. Now I want this lighter tree, which is very light, and I'm doing a bit of dry brush stroke here. Now you remember the dry brush stroke, and what it's doing, it's giving me that sort of, well, it's when the wind catches a willow tree, it all glistens. It blows the leaves usually up the other way, in other words, upside down, and you get this lovely feeling of movement. And that's done, or I'm doing it at the moment, simply by doing it dry brush and letting the brush miss and hit, or the paint miss and hit the surface of the paper, and it really works very nice. It gets very dark under there where we hit the water. A little bit of light green over there, and then we come into the dark again down here. Nice and dark. That's it. I'll just take that away. It might run back too much, but that's nice and dark there, like this. Just let the brush sort of jump up and down in the form that the tree is growing. Like this, and all the way down to where it stops, and it stops just a bit lower down than that. Put a bit of solid in there, and it just goes into a trunk. Now the trunk is light coloured, or it looks light coloured, but I'm going to leave it dark because again it wouldn't look right light, especially going into the dark. It would look wrong on the painting. Remember, when we're doing a painting, we're doing a painting. In other words, we're not trying to copy and make a photograph of it. We're using our license, artist license, to be able to make things work for the painting, which of course has got to stand in its own right when you're nowhere near the subject matter. So it's got to look right. Oh, the sun has just come out. Oh, that's rather nice. It's, oh gosh, yes, now that's lit the picture up. In fact, we've got on there, we've got some orangey colour tiles. Now, what I've done, I've now seen the picture with the sun really on it. And I've got to be careful that I don't go back on what I've done, because I can see things that I didn't see before. So I'm getting all excited with all the bits and pieces I can see and the shadows dancing and different things. But what I've got to do, I've got to forget that and just pick out the bits I really need. Or otherwise, I'll start to go over the painting and I've got problems. Now, the reflections don't come too far down. That's these reflections here. Notice bags of water, you can see it all running. And we're coming across, sort of picking up the shapes in the water. Now, it's funny because that house doesn't show up very much at all, and I'm wondering, I think it might be an idea to actually put it in. So I'm going to put it in. Now this will watch them. Don't let them start to run back. So you keep an eye on those. At the same time, don't let this dry. It's a sort of harrowing time is this bit, believe me. Now, this does lean to the left. So it comes down and sort of ripples around down here. Get a bit more in there. Then it continues over here. Let's just put that in for devilment. That, I don't know whether, I can't see it showing, but it looks rather good. Even the duck thought that. Now it's just a flick and a flick, up, down, two, and just sort of dancing around, just coming in, just playing about in the sky over these trees. Only little flicks, but oh, they really feel as though they're flying, don't they? Just those little flicks, and that's it. So I'm happy with it, quite frankly. You know, that's it.
Alwyn Crawshaw has written A Brush with Art. This 95-page book is lavishly illustrated in full color. Each of the 12 sections in the book is a self-contained lesson, featuring a different location and explaining how to paint it successfully in watercolor. Alwyn gives advice on mixing colors and painting a wash, sketching, composing a picture, portraying light and shade, tonal values, and perspective. For your copy, call 1-800-950-9648. The cost is $19.95 plus shipping and handling.
This program is made possible in part by